For all the latest in anime, cartoons, comics, manga, and pro wrestling, join us Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern for the nightly Niche newscast, and take a trip down Comics History Lane every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern for a historical comic retrospect, all of which you can find on the Mikestand. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mikestand today. So I guess I decided to go and try the intro video. Still trying to figure, there are times you're still trying to figure stuff out. Yeah, I think I'll just go with what I've been doing. I know people have suggested I try doing intro videos before, so I just tried it, and honestly, the way I have my timing all set up with how I do things, I think I'm just better off just doing things the way I've been doing them. So, anyways. All right, there we go. So, anyways, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is Friday, August the 15th, 2025. Hope everybody's having a good day, or has had a good week and is getting ready for the weekend. Of course, we're going to give people a chance to come in before we get started. Let's see now. Today I finished off watching cartoons from January 1940. Among those included the second Andy Panda cartoon that was ever produced, Andy Panda Goes Fishing, co-starring, of course, Mr. Whippletree, his turtle friend, among others. Let's see. Saw the last ever Crazy Cat cartoon that was ever produced, The Mouse Exterminator. So with that, we're coming up on 3 minutes now. So let me talk about what's on tap for tonight, of course. Let me just do something here real quick, because apparently YouTube is being a little stingy. All right. There we go. Let's see how that works out. So let's see now. So we're past the 3 minute mark, so I guess I'll talk about what's on tap for tonight. So on tonight's episode, of course, we're going to go. We're going to be looking at. I have two articles I'm going to be going over tonight. One from Me TV Tunes, the other from Bounding into Comics. We got a story regarding Joe Barbera. And then we talking about some of his unusual beginnings. Joe Barbera, for those of you who may not remember, was the one half of the famous Hanna-Barbera creative duo that, of course, gave us Tom and Jerry, Yogi Bear, Snagglepuss, Scooby-Doo, the Flintstones. So, and then we got a story on Frieren as well. And then, of course, we'll move on to we'll move on to the wrestling wrap up. We'll get caught up on last night's TNA and Ring of Honor action. Look ahead to tonight's TNA pay-per-view. Emergence. Look ahead to that. Look ahead to the special Ring of Honor episode that's airing tonight as well. Also, we'll be taking we'll be taking a look ahead to what's going to be going down this weekend. Also on tonight's SmackDown, tomorrow night's Collision, and then wrapping things up with this day in each history. So, with that all being said, a friendly reminder to everybody, of course, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. And, I welcome both my YouTube and Rumble, my YouTube subscribers and my Rumble followers. Feel free to follow or subscribe on both platforms if you can. And with that, why don't we go ahead and get into let's get to the first article then. Alrighty then. So with that, let's get into this. Joe Barbera's unusual beginnings in animation. Those nuns put Joe Barbera to work. Article published on August 13, 2025 by MeTV Toon staff. There's Wing and Hannah and Joseph Barbera there with their crew. Got from left to right there, Huckleberry Hound, Yogi Bear, and Fred Flintstone. All right, so some cartoonists are born great. Some have greatness thrust upon them. Others are pulled out of first grade math to draw murals on the chalkboards of their school. Oh, wait, that was just Joe Barbera. He was creating Tom and Jerry, the Flintstones, and hundreds of other classic cartoons. Before he was creating Tom and Jerry, the Flintstones, and hundreds of other classic cartoons, he was simply a kid with a talent for drawing. Barbera was enrolled in the first grade at Holy Innocents Catholic School, and like many children, loved to draw. But unlike other children, Barbera was already very talented and had practiced by tracing and then duplicating illustrations from books. In his autobiography, My Life in Toons, Barbera recalled the reaction of his teachers. Quote, "It did not take long for the nuns there to discover that I could draw. Far from wielding a knuckle-rapping ruler to discourage me in this, they put me to work. They planted me up at the blackboard with a big book of Bible illustrations, propped up on the ledge," unquote. At first, Barbera was tasked with recreating the illustrations on the chalkboards for lessons, but that expanded to murals. Quote, "Once the nuns had discovered I could do this," unquote, Barbera wrote, quote, "drawing Bible pictures became all that I ever did. The nuns would bring visitors to the classroom to watch me work. I never had to study. I never had homework to do," unquote. "Getting to draw all day sounds like way more fun than learning about fractions and considering Barbera eventually became a world-renowned cartoonist. This was great practice for his eventual career. I wonder just how proud those nuns were, and even the priest, when he went on to become one of the considered one of the greatest cartoonists of all time, right? Right up there with Hanna-Barbera, Chuck Jones, Fritz Frayling, Tex Avery, Paul Terry, Charles Mintz. I wonder just how proud they all were of him, for his talents. Eventually, Barbera's mother noticed he was coming home covered in chalk every day and couldn't do math. Barbera recalled, quote, "I was learning absolutely nothing. Reading I had picked up on my own, but I couldn't add, subtract, divide, or multiply, a disability that remains with me to this day." Unquote. Obviously angry, Mrs. Barbera pulled her son out of Holy Innocents and transferred him to another school. Despite Barbera's lifelong struggles with math, the nun's encouragement in his drawing may have made all the difference in his eventual career. Maybe those nuns had some foresight, huh? Into what this young lad was meant to do all the way back then, right? Yeah, his mother may not have been too thrilled at the idea they just had him drawing pictures all day, but this is one of those rare occasions where maybe that what's ended up being best. Usually, yeah, you'd want your child to be more well-rounded, but if this is what he ended up doing for his life's career, well, more power to him, right? So, anyways. And again, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the screen. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So now let's move on to the next story. We're gonna go over here, which is bounding into comics here. All right, so here we go. So of course, going through checking things before I. All right, so Freer and staff feel quote a sense of stagnation unquote, and Japanese anime scene warns against chasing Western quote unquote trends. Article by Spencer Bakuli, published August 14th, which was of course yesterday. So let's go ahead and take a look at what Spencer's got to say here. Amidst the Japanese anime industry's population crisis-driven effort to grow their overseas audiences, which we, of course, went over the other day with the Kadokawa story, Frieren, Beyond Journey's End director Keiichiro Saito and producer Takashi Nakame have expressed concern at the tendency seen in some of their peers to chase Western quote-unquote trends, particularly as they believe this focus underserves the potential of the overall medium. In other words, I think that's just a fancier way of saying, yeah, I think they picked up on the fact that going woke leads to going broke. Saito and Nakame offered their thoughts on the current state during a recent joint interview during the Japanese news outlet Montan Web. following their selection as candidates for the Global Anime Challenge. Per its official website, quote, Global Anime Challenge is a 3-year program funded by Agency for Cultural Arts. Its purpose is to nurture the Japanese anime industry's next generation of the creatives. 6 talented young animators, producers, and directors will be selected to experience internships at world-class studios outside of Japan for 3 months. Then they are to develop concept trailers to be presented at the world's top animation exhibition events, such as Annecy International Animation Film Festival in France, as well as Anime Expo in USA. Unquote. In opening the interview, as machine translated by DeepL, the pair were asked as to why they chose to join the program, to which Nakame took the lead and answered, quote, it's a bit vague, but I felt a sense of stagnation in the Japanese anime production environment. When I was thinking about trying something different from what I had done before, I heard about the opportunity to learn about overseas production sites and became interested. I don't know if it will directly solve the issues I'm currently facing, but I decided to join because I thought it might be a starting point for something. Unquote. Very interesting. So that's another way of looking at the Japanese animation. Maybe that stagnation is coming from the fact that, that as, again, the older generation's dying off, they need to like even though because of the fact you don't have as many younger animators out there because there are just not as many kids being born, right? Many young people out there. So right, so getting back to the article here, let me see. Well, before I do that, let me take another peek around here. See, all right. All right. Likewise, Saito recalled, quote, I was thinking about studying abroad to learn a language when Nakame invited me to join. Like Nakami-san, I also feel a sense of stagnation in the current anime industry. And when I thought about how I would proceed in this industry in the future, I was interested in things other than what I've been doing so far, so I decided to participate. Unquote. Here's some of the work from Furin. Does look like a very interesting anime. So. From there, pressed as to whether they intended to use their upcoming education would in service of making quote unquote a pilot film, the Furin anime duo confirmed that while that was their plan, they were still Saito. We have decided on the specifics. We haven't decided on the specifics yet, but since we've been given this opportunity, I feel like we should challenge ourselves since we can manage our own IP. We might be able to create a big trend. We'll have to think about the direction we want to take in the future. Nakami, quote, when it comes to creativity, there are some things we won't know until we actually try them. But since it's rare to have our own IP, I have a vague idea that we want to do something more than just make anime, unquote. Saito, quote, as mentioned in the courses, should we aim for something like the Academy Awards in the US, targeting something that will be widely accepted? Or should we go for something more niche? We need to think about that too. With Japanese anime playing a major role in the overseas market, I've been thinking about how to proceed. Even before participating, I had a vague idea of using my own work to build connections overseas. So I wanted to study communication as well. Unquote. There's a very interesting. Let's see. Frieren is surprised by the arrival of Fern in Frieren Beyond Journey's End, episode 12, A Real Hero. On the topic of strengthening and expanding global communication via their art, when asked as to what they felt was important when prompting Japanese anime to the world, or promoting Japanese anime to the world, Saito and Nakame both pointed to the medium's unique identity, particularly in terms of the broad range of stories and art styles it can offer, which they felt was currently being underserved thanks to studios trying to chase Western audiences. Saito. I have had the opportunity to attend overseas conventions and interact with overseas fans, and I have a vague feeling that the Japanese anime that overseas fans are enthusiastic about may be slightly biased. I feel the popular things are still popular, and there is a major trend. I also feel that this could lead to a disconnect between the creators and the fans, because the trend is so strong. Focusing too much on it can make the aspect of anime too dominant. Before that happens, I feel it's important to promote the diverse appeal of anime to the world. I want to create works that can attract global attention through various approaches. Now that sounds like a good approach right there. He's not talking about pushing any kind of agendas or anything like that. He basically, I think, in layman's terms, he's saying that he wants to create anime that appeals to everybody, with no kind of preaching involved. At least that's what I would interpret he's saying there. Any thoughts from the chats from the Rumble or the YouTube chat? Guys, feel free to comment and ask questions if any of this grabs your attention. Don't be shy. I will answer questions and to the best of my ability, and I always appreciate the comments. I always appreciate the back and forth of it. So, all right. So, Nakame, I feel the same way. Japanese anime tends to be created freely, but within that freedom, there may be a certain bias. It would be more interesting if there were more variety. It's easy to get caught up in the mainstream. And while that's necessary for the work itself, I think it's important to consider various aspects. Finally, in terms of what they hoped to glean from their upcoming internships at, quote, overseas studios, unquote, the director and producer affirmed that, simply put, they wanted to learn new perspectives with which they could inject new life into the Japanese anime scene. Bravo! That sounds very, very positive. Nakame. I haven't decided where yet, but I plan to go for about 3 months. Seems long, but it's actually short. I'm looking forward to learning about how they work differently from Japan, including their work style. Saito. Personally, I have issues, challenges, and future goals that I want to solve, and I want to find ways to solve them and gain new perspectives. I'm interested in differences between post production and pre production in Japan and overseas. And I want to explore ways to combine the best aspects of both Japan and overseas to create something different from what has been done in Japan so far. Rather than creating something completely unknown as a work, even if it's the same kind of work as before, the content might be completely different. Nakame. It's an extension of what we've done before, but I want to create while thinking, not just going through the motions. In that sense, there should be something new that can be created. While the best outcome, it's Saito. While the best outcome might be no change, I believe it's important to gain a perspective that hasn't existed before. Nakame, that's right. Expanding our horizons will inevitably lead to some changes. Till now, we weren't even at the stage where we could consider such things. So it's interesting that we can now think for ourselves. Furin shows Fern the clothes dissolving potion she intends to give Stark in Furin Beyond Journey's End, episode 12. All right, so very interesting article there. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me see now. So those are the two articles we're going to do tonight. I am going to need to step away from the computer for a moment. Let me just check, see if either. Okay. All right. But I'm going to put some music on while I'm gone here, so that I'm going to put some music on while I'm gone here. Keep you guys kind of entertained. Right, I'm back. So hopefully everybody's been enjoying the show thus far. As I said, we will get ready to move on to the next portion of the show, which is the wrestling wrap up. As we will be taking a look back to TNA Impact TNA Impact from last night, the go home Impact before tonight's Emergence. Be looking back to Ring of Honor Club show. We'll be looking ahead to tonight's, of course, Emergence pay per view, as well as the special episode of Ring of Honor Wrestling on YouTube. We'll be looking ahead to tonight's SmackDown, as of course WWE is continuing to build towards Clash in Paris in a couple weeks here on the 31st, and then also be looking ahead to tomorrow night's AEW Collision. So let's get into all that. Let's first off go back to last night. Let's go back to last night's Impact. On last night's Impact, coming from the Thomas M. Ryan Center in Kingston, Rhode Island, with Tom Hannafin and Matthew Rainwell on commentary on Access TV. The opening match of the night saw in six-man tag action the team of First Class of AJ Francis and Rich Swann making his return to TNA after a while there, teaming with TNA World Champion Trick Williams to take on the System's Eddie Edwards, Brian Myers, and JDC. They defeated them. In a Knockouts tag team match, Indy Hartwell and Danny Luna defeated Myla Grace and Harley Hudson. And let's see, the complete Matt Cardona defeated John Schuyler of Order 4's The Great Hands. Of course, John Schuyler had Jason Hodge and Tasha Steelz in his corner. Then in a singles match, Mikestand in his preparation for his upcoming match at Emergence against Sami Callihan, defeated Eric Young in a singles match with the rest of Northern Aria, Judas Icarus and Travis Williams in his corner. And then the main event saw in six-man tag action in a battle of people who will be at Emergence. Cedric Alexander teamed with the Rascals, Myron Reed and Zachary Wentz, to defeat their upcoming opponents at Emergence, TNA X Division champion Leon Slater and the Hardy Boys, Jeff and Matt Hardy. So now let's take a quick peek at what's going to be going down on Emergence tonight. On tonight's Emergence from Total Nonstop Action here. So they find that. Of course, Emergence taking place in Baltimore, Maryland. The Countdown Show, which will be on YouTube. Emergence will be coming from the Chesapeake Employers Insurance Arena in Baltimore, Maryland. On the pre-show, a former TNA Knockouts champion, Rosemary, will be taking on Indy Hartwell in a Knockouts singles match. Then the Hometown Man will be taking on Ryan Nemeth in a match that was set up on last week's episode of Impact after Santino Marella suspended Nick Nemeth for assaulting some security guards, and Ryan Nemeth was now placed in this match on the pre-show. And for the Emergence pay-per-view itself, Also, of course, coming from the Chesapeake Employers Insurance Arena in Baltimore, Maryland, on TNA Plus. Opening match is going to see Matt Cardona taking on Mustafa Ali of Order 4, with the rest of Order 4 of the Great Hands and Tasha Steelz in his corner. In a tag team match, the former TNA World Tag Team Champions Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers of the System will be taking on First Class's AJ Francis and Rich Swann. In a no disqualification, no count-out match, as a result of a match that happened a couple weeks ago on Impact, Steve Macklin will be defending the TNA International title against Jake Something. In a match we did mention earlier, former TNA World Champion Sami Callihan takes on the franchise Mike Santana in a singles match. For Callihan, this is a chance for some redemption, as he's been on a bit of a downtread of late. There is some speculation that he might retire if he loses this match. Don't know what else is going on, or contract may be coming up. The TNA Knockouts World tag team titles will be up for grabs in a 4-way match, as the Elegance brand, this time represented by Heather and M by Elegance. So I guess now they're allowing the Elegance brand to utilize the Freebird rule, which was a rule that was originated by the Fabulous Freebirds back in the 80s, in which if you have a team of 3, any 2 members of that team of 3 can defend the titles at any one time. Of course, this is most popularized, most famously used by the Freebirds. That's why it's called the Freebird rule. The original Freebirds being Terry Bam Bam Gordy, Michael P.S. Hayes, and Buddy Jack Roberts back when they were in World Class together. And of course, eventually, Michael Hayes would eventually team up with Jimmy Jam Garvin as the Freebirds in WCW as well years later. But the Elegance brand will be defending the Knockouts World Tag Team titles, and they'll have Ash by Elegance and Personal Concierge in their corner. They'll be defending them against Zaya Brookside and Lei Ying Lee, former TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Champions, The Inspiration of Cassie Lee and Jessie McKay, and NXT's Fatal Influence duo of Fallon Henley and Jasmine Nix. The Hardy Boys, Jeff and Matt Hardy, will be defending the TNA World Tag Team titles against the Rascals, Myron Reed and Zachary Wentz. Myron Reed, who's been stepping up for Trey Miguel, who's just not medically cleared and has been medically cleared for the past few weeks. Leon Slater, in his second X Division title defense, will be defending against Cedric Alexander. Previously defended against Cedric Alexander and Jason Haas a few weeks back on Impact. So thus far he's showing his willingness to become a fighting champion. And then the main event, we'll see Trick Williams of NXT defending the TNA World title against Moose. So that's all we got on the TNA news front. Now let's go ahead and look at Ring of Honor. We have a couple of things to look at here. So on last night's Ring of Honor on Honor Club episode, as soon as I can pull it up here. Coming from the Byline Bank, our Aragon Ballroom in Chicago, Illinois, on Ring of Honor Wrestling.com, ROHWrestling.com, with Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni on commentary. The opening match, an 8-man tag match, where the Beast Mortos teamed up with CMLL's Defunto, Hechicero, and Volador Jr. with Lance Archer in their corner, taking on the Spanish Announce Project of Angelico and Serpentico, AR Fox and Alex Zane, in which the team from CMLL, Beast Motos, and defeated the other men. In a one-on-one match, Willie Mack defeated Gringo Loco. Lance Archer defeated Ren Jones in 43 seconds. In a women's match, Layla Gray, with Christopher Daniels in her corner and representing Skyflight, defeated Taya Valkyrie, with Johnny TV and the M&M collection of Mansoor and Mason Madden in her corner. New Japan strong openweight champion Tomohiro Ishii defeated Oro. And in a Ring of Honor Pure Title Proving Ground match, Zahua earned a shot by coming to a 10-minute draw with Lee Moriarty. So there we go with that. And now, looking ahead, of course, to tonight, as Ring of Honor will be in action on YouTube. This is a Ring of Honor special episode. On tonight's Ring of Honor YouTube special here, with, of course, Caprice Coleman, Ian Riccaboni on commentary. The opening match will see QT Marshall taking on the OXP. Adam Priest and the workhorsemen of Anthony Henry and J.D. Drake and Anthony Henry will be taking on the trio of Josh Fuller, Joe Keys, and Ryan Zuko. Jay Lethal takes on Alex Zane in a one-on-one match. AR Fox teams up with the Outrunners, Turbo Floyd and Truth Magnum, to take on Shane Taylor Promotions of Shane Taylor and Infantry of Carly Bravo and Sean Dean. Allison Kay, former NWA World Women's Champion and NWA World Women's Tag Team Champion, takes on Billy Starks, who will have Ring of Honor World Champion Tina in her corner. Of course, Billy Starks being a former Ring of Honor World TV title holder. Marty Bell, the other half, of course, of the Hex, with Allison Kay. She'll be taking on Marina Shafir, who will have John Moxley in her corner. Beef and Tom La Rufa will be taking on the team of Blake Christian and Lee Johnson in a tag team match. CMLL's Hechicero will be taking on Jordan Oliver. The Premier Athletes duo of Arya Davari and Tony Nese will be taking on CMLL's El Sky team of Mascara Dorado and Neon. And in a match for the Ring of Honor World Television title, Nick Wayne will be defending against Willie Mack. So that's all we got for the Ring of Honor news. So now looking ahead to tonight's SmackDown. The SmackDown, so we get to that information up. Looking ahead to tonight's SmackDown, we're still 2 weeks away from Clash Paris. They're continuing to build up towards that. So coming from the TD Garden, Boston, Massachusetts, tonight's episode of SmackDown already scheduled DIY Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano of DIY, in a battle of two former WWE Tag Team Champions, will be taking on the Street Profits of Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford. Piper Niven of the Secret Hervis will be taking on Alexa Bliss, one half of the Women's Tag Team Champion. And then Carmelo Hayes and The Miz will be teaming up to take on former NXT Tag Team Champions Axiom, and Nathan Frazier. They were recently called up to SmackDown about a month ago. So now we're going to take a look at, of course, take a look now to tomorrow night's Collision as they continue to build up towards tonight's Collision will be taking place at the Andrew J. Brady Music Center in Cincinnati, Ohio. The opening match will see the team of Jet Speedball Mike Bailey, and the Jet Kevin Knight taking on the Death Riders John Moxley and Wheeler Yuta. Blake Christian and Lee Johnson will be taking on duo of Paragon of Kyle Riley and Roderick Strong. Ricochet will be taking on the debuting Ace. I guess Ace Austin will be in action. I don't know if he's actually been signed to AEW or not, or if this is just if he's just coming in as a freelancer. So I guess we'll wait and see here. In a $100,000 four-way match, in which the winner will win $100,000, Penelope Ford will be taking on Chris Statlander. They'll be also taking on Anna Jay and, of course, Julia Hart. And in a number one contenders match, for a four-way match, in a four-way match to determine the number one contender for the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, currently held by Zack Sabre Jr., determine who will challenge him at Forbidden Door, which will be 1 week from tomorrow. Nigel McGuinness, former Ring of Honor World Champion, will be taking on, of course, CMLL's Hechicero. They'll also be taking on current Ring of Honor Pure Champion Lee Moriarty and former AEW TNT Champion and Ring of Honor, two-time Ring of Honor Pure Champion Daniel Garcia. All right, so that's all we got for the wrestling wrap-up for you guys. So now we're going to get ready to move on to the This Day in Each History. Today is Friday, August the 15th, 2025. So let's get ready to take a look back at this day in each history. History! So first off, we're going to head back to the year 2000. On this date in the year 2000, so I grab that. This date in the year 2000, and I know many of you, I didn't even know about this until I was looking this up, but the second and final episode of Sammy, the second and final episode of Sammy premiered on this date back in the year 2000. Sammy is an adult animated sitcom that aired on NBC in 2000, created by comedians David Spade and Drake Sater. The series only had a 2-week run from August 8th until 15th. The airstyle of the series is reminiscent of Klasky Supo cartoons, as Everett Peck was the character designer of the series. Sammy, along with another animated sitcom, God, the Devil, and Bob, was conceived by NBC in order to capitalize on the fledgling trend of animated programs geared towards adults. When God, the Devil, and Bob attracted low ratings and controversy due to its subject matter, it was quickly canceled and sold to Cartoon Network to be a part of its Adult Swim block. This left Sammy in limbo, not premiering until early August 2000, with minimal promotion and fanfare. NBC was contractually obligated to air the first 2 episodes. Once both premiered, the show was quietly canceled. According to Olivia Hack, who voiced Lola, 13 episodes were produced. It was the last series by Adelaide Productions to use traditional cell animation aside from the opening theme being animated in digital ink and paint. So 25 years ago, the second and final episode of Sammy premiered on this date in the year 2000. So there we go with that. So now, moving on to the year 2001, so 24 years ago today, this date in the year 2001, the 5th issue of Crooks from CrossGen went on sale on its date back in 2001, sold for $2.95. It was 32 pages. No title of the story, but the story was written by Mark Waid, with pencils by Steve Epling. Rick Magyar did the inking. Lettering was done by Tony Pateri and Dave Lamphere, with coloring done by Frank D'Armata. So 24 years ago today, the 5th episode of Crooks premiered on, or went on sale on newsstands. So I know I'm just used to saying newsstands for all of them, but I know by now they're not on newsstands. They're more like in comic shops. But I think you guys can still get the message, you know. All right, so moving ahead to the year 2010, on this date in the year 2010, as soon as I pull that up, WWE held its SummerSlam event at Staples Center in Los Angeles, California. It was the 23rd annual SummerSlam event when 6 matches took place. This marked, of course, the return of Daniel Bryan to the promotion. Let's see. The matches on the evening. The opening match saw, so the main event saw Team WWE of John Cena, John Morrison, R-Truth, Edge, Bret Hart, Chris Jericho, and Daniel Bryan defeating the Nexus of Wade Barrett, David Otunga, Justin Gabriel, Heath Slater, Darren Young, Skip Sheffield, Michael Tarver in a 7-on-7 elimination. Yeah, I remember this now. Daniel Bryan was making his return after having been basically fired for going a little over the top by choking out Justin Roberts with his own tie. Kane retained the World Heavyweight title over Rey Mysterio. Randy Orton defeated Sheamus to become the new... Randy Orton defeated Sheamus via DQ in a match for the WWE Championship. In a handicap match, the Big Show defeated the entirety of the Straight Edge Society of CM Punk, Luke Gallows, and Joey Mercury, with Serena, now known as Serena Deeb in AEW, in a 3-on-1 handicap match. Melina defeated Alicia Fox to become the WWE Divas Champion. The show opened up with an Intercontinental title match in which Dolph Ziggler, a.k.a. Nick Nemeth, retained over Kofi Kingston. So there we go with that. And then finally, in the year 2020, which was, of course, 5 years ago today. On this date, 5 years ago today. Let me pull that up. All right. Ufotables. Okay, so Ufotables, Fate Stay Night, Heavens Feel 3, Spring Song, premiered in Japanese theaters on this date back in the year 2020, 5 years ago. It was a Japanese anime fantasy action film produced by Ufotable and directed by. The story continues immediately from the events of Fate Stay Night, Heaven Feel 2, Lost Butterfly, and is the final installment in a trilogy of films adapting Heaven's Feel, the third and final route of the visual novel Fate Stay Night. It premiered in Japan on August 15, 2020, in the United States, November 18, 2020. Like its predecessors, the film was a commercial success, grossing over $19 million at theatrical release. All right, so with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. We'll be back here, of course, on Sunday. I'll be back here on Sunday with my co-host, with this week's co-host, The Metal from the Vomitorium, as we will be taking another trip down Comics History Lane. I'll be taking another trip down Comics History Lane. We'll be taking a look at books that went on sale in June of 1940 from Columbia Comic Corporation. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here on Sunday. Bye.